Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Tony Pomps podcast. I've got a great friend with me here today, and he's got a lot to talk about. So this thing is going to be a very interesting interview today. Please welcome Bill Brinton. Hey, Bill, how you doing?
It's nice to be here.
I know it's nice to be here. So you know what? I'm going to pretty much turn the floor over to you because I know that you've got more stories than we probably have time. But before we were on the air, we were talking a little bit. Went back when you were a young man and you started out playing some baseball. Why don't we start there?
Oh yeah, I first of all, I've had about as colorful a life as you can have for a guy not in the entertainment business. I was a gifted athlete. I had 24 vision. I saw at the average person saw at 4.
Wow.
So I started playing baseball. I played Little League baseball. I led that league. I batted over 500. Then I went into Pony League. I batted 627.
Holy moly.
Then I went into Colt League, which is 15-16, and I batted 726 and made the pages of a number of sports magazines, including early Sports Illustrated, for getting 17 hits in a row.
Wow.
And even though I did it, it's impossible.
So let me stop you right there for 1 sec, because I have a little bit of baseball background myself. And the one thing that, because of your vision, this extra sharp vision that you had, I always remember the best hitters could see the seams on the ball as it's coming, right? And I bet you could see, you picked up the seams sooner than the most, which means you could differentiate between a curveball and a fastball, right?
I could almost see the label on the thing as it was coming.
There you go.
And a quick story in that, I was a sophomore in high school. I was probably 14, and we had one of the kids from our high school that turned pro. He played for the Angels, and they brought him over and they said, "Hey, strike the kid out." So they put me up there, and he threw about an 85-mile-an-hour fastball. And I thought, holy crap, I missed that one. The third ball he threw me, I hit on top of the gymnasium, 360 feet away.
Unbelievable.
And he couldn't strike me out.
Oh,
and I would go a whole season without striking out.
So it looked like you were on track to probably play college ball or minor league ball and professional ball. What happened between there and then?
Here's what happened. And let me give you a little more background. I played youth ball in Fontana, but I was in the Colton School District. Colton won the Little League World Series in 1955. Wow. All those kids came up. When I got up to high school, I played with them. But when you're hitting that high, when you're hitting over 600, 700, if you go 1 for 4, it's over.
Yeah.
So baseball made me so nervous. I got to high school. I batted 1 hit short of 700. That's probably the highest batting average in the nation. Maybe I don't think anybody else did.
No, I remember if you can do 500, you're a pretty good high school baseball player. So you're at 700.
Every baseball team was calling me, and I had this teammate, Kenny Hubbs was his name. He was voted MVP at the Little League World Series in 1955 when they won. He came up, and there's been 2 books written about him because he went on to play for the Chicago Cubs. They put him at second base when he was 19.
Wow.
He set the all-time fielding record, 450 times without an error. And then he was killed learning to fly.
Oh, geez.
Anyhow,
sorry to hear that.
Baseball teams were all over me. Stan Musial called my house. A young Tommy Lasorda called my house.
Who later became your friend, right?
Became my friend. And that story I got to tell because I give a lot of talks, and I always start out by saying, look, I am nobody from nowhere. I grew up in Bloomington. My dad was a bricklayer at steel mill. I was so shy, I almost dropped out of college because I was going to have to give a 1-unit public speaking class. It's hard to believe now, but I was shy. So I didn't want anything to do with professional baseball, but I played football, and football I absolutely loved. I was extremely strong and big. I told Tony earlier, I hit a 420-foot home run when I was 15.
Jeez.
And
Can you imagine?
I hit a documented 520-foot home run when I was 18. And that's got to be a record. But anyhow, amazing. I didn't want to play. I wanted to play
football.
And so I was recruited by USC. They drove me down to LA, and on the way down there, I said, I don't want to go to LA. I don't want to go to LA. So I went to junior college in San Bernardino.
So you didn't feel comfortable moving away from your normal habitat around San Bernardino area?
Oh, yeah, I was shy.
I'm familiar with it. I'm familiar with the area.
So I went to junior college, lived at home. Lo and behold, our football team won 2 national championships.
Wow.
I played 1 year baseball there, batted over 500, led the league in hitting.
And this is your junior college team?
Junior college.
What school was that?
San Bernardino JC.
I'll be darned.
And the players on that team went on to USC, to Ohio, to Oregon State. We had a fabulous team, a bunch of ex-military players. Anyhow, so I'm all set, though, after a year and a half, 2 years of junior college to go to USC. And I was invited down to San Diego State on a lark. And I said, no, see that TV? I'll be on there every Saturday playing for USC. Instead, I went down to San Diego State, and there was Don Coryell. He was nobody then. Yeah. He was just Don Coryell.
I remember him.
In junior college, he was at Compton JC. We beat him 42-7. So he knew us.
Compton JC. I know where that was too, off of London and 91 freeway.
9 of us players from San Bernardino JC went to San Diego. I never seen any recruiting in my life like that. He had, for example, he had 12 San Diego Chargers standing on the dock. Jack Kemp was the quarterback. He went on to be in politics.
Yeah.
They flew us around San Diego. Then he gave me the keys to a Cadillac convertible. He said, but you're not driving. These 2 sorority girls have volunteered to show you and one other guy around town. And
sorority girls,
they did part with a little money in those days. And so I never called FC to say I wasn't gone there. I went to San Diego State.
Well, that's pretty obvious reason why.
It was paradise. It was, I tell people, and at that time, that was 1960, tuition was $88 a semester.
Oh, yeah.
So I got a scholarship. I also had a job. And I went there, and I was a chemistry major.
Here we go. Now this is the next. We're going in the next phase of your interest as far as part of your life is concerned.
Oh yeah, and so when I finished with college and with sports, plenty of opportunity to play professional, but I didn't want to. I injured my knee towards the end of my college. I wasn't the same. It was so stressful because I put pressure on me.
Yeah.
And obviously I was crazy to try to hit 700.
Yeah.
And so I went into the chemical industry. I went to work for Celanese. I right away got introduced to chemicals for plywood, for beer cans, for all sorts of things. And someone, when I was 26, said, if you come to the Orient, we can sell millions of dollars worth of paint. Taiwan, Malaysia, Indonesia, Borneo were selling mahogany logs for peanuts. And somebody said, listen, you make that into plywood, you can make 10 times as much money.
So now where were you living at this time?
I was living in San Bernardino.
Back to San Bernardino.
Yeah, and Celanese plant was in Riverside. Anyhow, I went to the Orient. And it was a big, I was 4 inches taller then. I'm 5'10", now I was 6'2". For example, the reason I was good, I was 6'2", 245 pounds, but I ran the 100-yard dash in 9.9.
Wow. The
San Diego State record when I went there in 1960 was 10 flat.
So needless to say, you didn't run to the Orient. You took a plane, right?
I took a plane.
Okay. So
and I get off and I go to Taipei, Kaohsiung. I walk out on the street. In 15 minutes, you got 50 people gathered around you. And you wonder, what do they want? They wanted to practice their English because everybody in the Orient wanted to learn English. Tell you a quick story. Everybody wanted a Timex watch. Really? I meet the lady that had the license for Timex watch. She was making $12 million a year. They didn't want Rolex.
And what year was it?
This is close to 1970.
Wow.
1969. The lady that had Parker pens, she was making $8 million a year. The guy that had Levi's, you don't even want to know. He was driving around in a Rolls Royce. And the Rolls Royce, they only sold one to Taiwan, one to Korea, and one to Singapore. And in Singapore, you paid the price of the Rolls Royce, and then you paid 100% duty.
I'll be darned.
And he's driving one, so he made some money selling it.
So while you were there, what were you doing there? How long did you stay
Well,
there?
so what I did is I'd go to these companies that wanted to go from making plywood to painting plywood because they could make 3 times as much money.
I see.
So I first sold them the paint for the plywood, and then I said, you should make your own. And the opportunity there was tremendous. While I was just milling around, all these people came to me and they said, look, we need some white eyes in America. We can sell anything, we can make anything. We just need a representative in the United States. Well, I had 2 sons that were getting ready to play Little League baseball, and I didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
I usually would go for 3 weeks at a time, and that was a long time to be over there.
Away from your family.
I sold a couple 100,000 horse hides. And
Horse
I'm
hides.
working for a paint company, and I sold horse hides.
And
Yeah,
how do
because-
horse hides come into play?
Because the manufacturers over there were making shoes and clothing, and they needed horse hide because it was cheaper than cow hide. So I just make a couple calls, and everybody said, "Oh my God, we throw those away."
My goodness.
And then Jimmy Carter was in, and Jimmy Carter and the world was having a chemical shortage, and the plywood guys making plywood, they would use a urea glue in a hot press, but when they made fancy plywood, they couldn't do it because it would burn the veneer. So they used Elmer's glue. They used white glue. Well, during the shortage, they couldn't get that stuff. So I made a couple calls over to Irvine, where there was a plant for Borden. And I said, can you sell me some Elmer glue? Yeah, how much you want? A few drums? I said, no. How about 4 container loads? Because these people were making plywood.
And now this is going to go to the Orient?
This is going to go to Korea and Taiwan.
Oh, geez.
And
Okay.
they're making 200,000 panels a day.
Wow. So
When they put a little spritz of clear coating on their finished plywood, they were using 30,000 gallons a day.
So at this point, you're connected, man. You
Yeah.
got a lot going on, back and forth. You got a young family. You're traveling back and forth.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure, in those days, it was probably more of a hassle to go back and forth than it is nowadays.
It was.
The
And,
trips were longer, right?
oh, yeah. And Taiwan was so loud when I first went over there. Everybody was on mopeds and bicycles and on foot. And then deliveries were made with 50cc mopeds with a trailer in the back with 10 drums.
Unbelievable. That must have been a sight.
I went back many years later. I walked out onto the airport, and the same guy that I did business with, he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Everybody's gained 30 pounds. They were all thin, working hard every day." But not only did I do this, but I met a lot of the political leaders. I met a guy that wanted to work with me was the president of China Airlines. He took me in and let me sit in Chiang Kai-shek's chair.
Wow.
Now, you don't know who Chiang Kai-shek is. That's a long time ago. Chiang Kai-shek was the ruler of China.
Huh.
Okay, they had the Communist Revolution with Mao Zedong. He drove Chiang Kai-shek over to what was Formosa, became Taiwan. And if you look at the map, you'll see ROC. You go, what's ROC? Republic of China. He tried to save face. Well, I was bringing them technology that enabled them to make hundreds of millions of dollars. That a lot of those countries were agricultural countries, just like China was. And all of a sudden, they're making money and they're bringing technology. And so I actually met Chiang Kai-shek. I was 27, and
Man, you were young.
you couldn't get near him. 6 feet away, they were like gods. And somebody said, "Yeah, this is Bill Brinton. He's helping us out here." And he looked at me and said, "Oh, Mr. Brinton, American football, I like very much." Somebody told him I played football. And I'm probably the only guy alive that really talked to Chiang Kai-shek.
I'll be darned.
He and Mao Zedong had a longevity contest. They both lived to be about 106. Nobody knows to this day who died first. Okay. I had the good fortune of going to lunch every day for 7 days with one of the doctors that was treating her. And check this out. You could satisfy your military service by spending 2 years in the military or with the government or whatever, or you could be a donor for Chiang Kai-shek. They put you in quarantine for 4 to 6 months, make sure you're healthy, fed you the best food, exercise, women. Then they collected your blood. And Chiang Kai-shek and Mao Zedong took 2 pints of virile blood every day.
And now this is from foreigners as well, or is it just from people of their own?
Oh, no. The Chinese guys, they interviewed them if they were exceptionally healthy, athletic, strong, virile.
I see.
And then they collected their urine, which was secret. They processed their urine, and these guys drank a pint of urine every day.
Oh, yeah.
Because young men excrete their excess hormones, testosterone, progesterone, and these guys live to be 106.
Interesting.
So you can't argue with them.
And we're talking about during that time. This is what, the early 70s now, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Interesting.
Chiang Kai-shek died in 1970, and I was there. I was in Taiwan. Everything was closed. Business, restaurants, everything, except the golf course and the casino.
I see.
So,
All right, so let's fast forward just a little bit.
Okay.
Otherwise, we could be here for a day and a half
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about this stuff, which is so interesting. We're gonna have you back again so we can hit on some of these things a little deeper. But let's talk about when you moved to Seattle.
Oh, yeah. I'd worked for all these companies, selling all this stuff on the side. I was putting in an awful lot of work. I was working for them. I ran the sales through them. I started making a lot of money. They didn't like me making more money than the president of the company and tried to cut me back. So I quit. And I went to work for a Swiss company that had a new technology for what was called single component moisture cure polyurethane coatings. Okay. I go to work for them. I got sideways with them because I didn't like them. The day I'm leaving to get married to my current wife of 38 years, the day I'm leaving, on the 30th of December, they brought in 20-page termination agreement and fired me.
Oh, wow.
And I said, look, I'm in the whole company. You come to go down the toilet. Doesn't matter. It was a Swiss president. We got sideways. And so I went home. Deborah said, what in the world happened to you? I said, I just got fired. They said, you can't fire you. She said, I'll marry you. So we went off and got married. I came back on my balcony in Marina Del Rey in our little condo with paper cups and spatula or a fork out of my drawer. I did experiments because this technology was the most durable paint in the world, but it took a week to make it. And that was part of my problem with them. I figured out on my balcony how to make it in 1 hour and make it stable. And so when these characters fired me, I said, I'm going to screw you. They said, what can you do? You don't have any money. They gave me a termination agreement. They didn't say anything about non-compete. So anyhow, Deborah and I moved to Seattle with about $16,000. I got up there, went into business in a little lean-to in a mini maxi warehouse with a stick in a can. I developed a product line, and this is difficult. There's material safety data sheets, all kinds of samples, labels, everything. And the very first order we got was for the Astoria Bridge, $80,000.
Wow.
I made a couple of 5-gallon pails and took it up and tried it. And they said, oh my God, that's the best paint I've ever seen in the world. It's the only paint in the world could be used when it was cold, damp, high humidity, raining, damp surfaces even.
Yeah.
Epoxy paint, polyurethane paint that's specified all over the world for oil platforms can't be used when the humidity is below 70%. I mean, above 70%, or when it's below 50 degrees. Here I came out with something you could shave the ice off of stuff and use the ice as scaffolding to paint pilings.
I'll be darned.
And so,
So you invented this,
yeah, but I had no money.
but you
So-
did get an order.
I got an order, and I told the contractor, look, I can't make that. I don't have any money. Well, he says, my project stopped. I'm going to go bust. I'm going to go bankrupt on this. So he paid me $80,000 in advance, bought the raw
Wow.
materials, made it. That story hit the front cover of a number of magazines, and the established paint industry crapped their pants because this replaced every paint in the world for industrial use.
So is it fair to say that you patent this stuff? I mean,
No, you can't patent it, because if you patent it, you have to put everything that's in there and why you use it.
and so everybody's going to find out.
Well, in America, people honor patents. The
Yeah.
rest of the world,
Ah.
and see, this market we went into was a worldwide thing. As a matter of fact, we were only in business 10 years. We became world famous. We sold the paint for the Manhattan Bridge, the Triborough Bridge. We sold the paint for the Golden Gate Bridge.
Wow.
We sold the paint for the Eiffel Tower in Las Vegas, the Bellagio Fountain, the Panama Canal. There's a picture of me and Deborah and our poodle, 4 feet by 2 feet, in the Panama Canal office. We saved them literally millions of dollars because they didn't have to shut the canal down to paint it.
Painted. Wow.
They usually shut down for 2 weeks. That would cost them millions of dollars just to let the paint dry.
So needless to say, this was a huge milestone in your life.
Oh yeah.
This was the difference maker. I mean, everything else you did before that, you did great. You did this, you did that. You made money here and there. But this one here, you sat there with those little cups and you developed a product and you kept it a good secret. And now you're in business. Thanks to the guy that advanced you $80,000.
Absolutely.
You're probably
And
forever grateful for that.
several times, this was a big international contractor that did billion-dollar projects, and he became a good friend. And I called him up several times, and he said, "How you doing?" I said, "I'm broke. I don't have any money. I'm growing too fast."
Oh, man.
You've heard if you grow fast, you go out of business? Yeah, because we were doubling our sales. You couldn't collect fast enough. And but I got my sons in it. Deborah was running the whole office. We were in 10 years. Everybody in the world wanted to buy us. So we sold to the largest paint company in Australia because, lo and behold, the Olympics were in Sydney.
Yeah.
The construction of all the stuff was running late. The weather was bad. They had no choice. They had to use our paint to paint the Olympic complex.
Wow.
So
how long did you hold on to the company?
Only 10 years.
10 years.
And we started with no plant, no equipment. And, if I had 2 hours, I could tell you how we bought equipment for 10 cents on the dollar. How we drove around in a $100 Love pickup picking up raw material. We bought a Rolls and a Jag. We bought the Grey Poupon Rolls Royce Silver Cloud for $15,000. We bought a Jaguar at an auction for $9,000.
So now you're living life, man. Now you're rolling.
But we borrowed $45,000 and $50,000. Okay. Then we paid those off, and we used the Rolls and Jag as secondary collateral with the SBA to get a $500,000 loan because I had no secondary collateral. And so we pulled rabbits out of every hat. And there's so many great stories on that. And, I want to go back 1 second because I want to tell the Tommy Lasorda story.
Please do.
I'm nobody from nowhere. My first wife was American Indian. She was Potawatomi. She was a direct cousin of Jim Thorpe. In fact, his brother, Eddie Thorpe, who played professional ball, he spent the last 2 months of his life living at my house in San Bernardino, telling stories about how they got even because they'd play on these professional teams, but they wouldn't let those dirty engines sleep in the hotel. They'd have to sleep in the bus.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so my sons meet Wayne Newton, Mr. Las Vegas. He's Indian. He's at the Sweat with them in Vegas. He said, "Boy, do I have the girl for you." Fix my son up with his sister-in-law. Wayne only has a sister-in-law, a mother-in-law, a daughter, and us. That's the family. So we're Wayne's family. And so we bought Wayne a star down here in Palm Springs on the Walk of Stars.
I remember hearing about that.
It's the best one there. It's on the point by the old library between Frank Sinatra and Elvis Presley. And we had a party at our house. All these celebrities are there. And I look over and there's Tommy Lasorda. So I walked over to see him. This is 5 years ago. He's passed away since.
Yeah.
I walked over to see him. "Hey, Tommy, I want to introduce myself." He said, I know you are. I said, you don't know who I am. He said, I know who you are. I said, no, you don't know who I am. He said, yes, I do. I said, okay. And there were a bunch of my friends there. You wouldn't believe it. He says, you're the dumbest ass effing baseball player that ever played. You hit 700.
He knew him.
But you wanted to play football. He said, I said, you can't remember that. It was over 60 years ago. He said, see that little dog?
Yeah.
He said, I brought my dog with me because he lived in Studio City or something. And he said, when I go for a walk, if I didn't have that dog, I couldn't find my way home, but I know baseball. He said, nobody ever hit 700 but you. We followed you since you were 14 years old.
Unbelievable, huh? And this is before we had the systems we have nowadays with, computers and, cell phones and all that kind of stuff. So
he went on to tell me about this fellow, Kenny Hubbs, that was on my team. About 2 books were written about Kenny Hubbs, and half of each book was how his father hated me for stealing his thunder. And Tommy went on to tell me all this. Yeah, this fellow was on your team at All-American Power Sports, but you were captain of the baseball team.
So it's very obvious, even though you're a huge success in the paint industry, literally painted the world, okay? But I could tell you still go back to your roots in sports. I think that was a true love,
I have been hooked on tennis, basketball, skiing.
Play golf these days as well.
Play golf. Yeah. I was a scratch golfer at one golf course where we were. The other fall had 47 eagles.
Wow.
And
Amazing.
The best golf of my life I played when I was from 60 to 72 years old. I was still getting eagles and hitting the ball long.
I'm gonna have you catch your breath here for a sec. I want to go through a list of people that I got that you sent to me. And these are some of the famous people that Bill has been involved with in his life. Joe DiMaggio, Jack and Susie Hanna, Don Amici, Dudley Moore, Vicky Carr, Barbie Benton, Kelly Curtis, Ivan Torres, David Rosh, Christine, how do you spell that? Chenwick, Terry Garr, Cher, Steve Garvey, who lives here in town, running for Senate, and Charo and Steve Miller. Out of that group, is there anybody that stands out that you want to say one last thing about?
Every one of those is a story. I didn't just meet them. Barbie Benton.
Pick your favorite ones.
Oh, well, I got to tell you Barbie Benton because she was, one of the most famous of all. I made a friend. He was executive vice president of Sinclair Paint, big private owned paint company.
Oh yeah.
He was married to Vicky Carr, the famous singer, and he lives in Beverly Hills. And I went over to go skiing with him one day, and he said, "Oh, we need an ice chest." I said, "No, we don't ice chest." He said, "Come on, we're going next door." So we go out his gate over here, up this gate. He rings the doorbell and he takes off. I say, "Hey, I don't know these people." Door opens. There in a thong bikini was Barbie Benton, who I recognized immediately. This is 40 years ago. Everybody in the world, every guy in the world knew who Barbie Benton was. And she says, "Oh, you're Bill. Come on in." And she gave me a hug and a big wet kiss on the lips.
Holy moly.
And I remembered that. And like I say, everybody on that list.
Well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do this.
I can tell you stories about all of them.
I got to bring you back, okay? And we're going to think about some of these people in the future. And we're going to talk about them. But I got to ask you one last question here. One of my favorites, Jay Leno. Something about Jay Leno's floor. You actually put paint?
When we were in the paint industry, our top coat was harder, more durable than any other paint in the world. So we put it on Jay Leno's floor in his warehouse where he had all his cars. We put it on Paul Allen's heliport. We put it on Bill Gates' dock and all of his. Bill Gates, real interesting. Bill Gates built a place on Lake Washington. He had a stream that ran through his living room, through his bedroom, out to the lake.
And you've seen all this stuff.
They planted salmon in a pond up at the top, raised them up till they were 6 inches long. They went down the stream. 3 or 4 years later, they spawned and came back, swimming through his living room, swimming through his bedroom, salmon.
Oh, you darn. So before we close, I got to ask you one last thing, because I know you're very close to this gentleman, Wayne Newton.
Oh, Wayne, like I say, Wayne is wonderful. He is like a vampire because of his working every night. He sleeps all day. He gets up around 6, has dinner, laughs it up with everybody. And then he's still working today. He still does a great show, a terrific show to watch up in Vegas. And my son has become his best friend, and they've been a whirl of fun for us, meeting a lot of people through them. And I didn't tell you, after we sold our company, you got to hear this story real quick because this is amazing. We sold that company. My sons each had been given 20% of the company, instant millionaires. We all put our money in the stock market in 2000. Stock market crashed. They lost every cent. They meet a guy in a bar in Seattle, and he said, "Well, I have an idea for a company. I don't know how to start a company." I said, "Well, we've only done it once, but it's easy, and it takes about $200 and 1 hour's work." They founded a company called Zonar, which was to verify safety inspections for commercial vehicles. All trucks and buses over a certain weight had to have a pre and post trip safety inspection. They came up with the idea of using RFID tags and a reader. Okay, so they got started with that. It could have been a $30 million company, but they met Daimler in Europe, biggest corporation in Europe, making 60% of all the trucks and buses.
Daimler.
And they said, "Too bad you couldn't get in on building our virtual mechanic." And I said, "What's that?" "That's 200 to 220 wireless sensors all over the truck and trailer that goes to your onboard computer and tells you got a problem. Either stop the truck, pull over, or go to the exit number 17 to the Daimler repair yard, and we have the parts for you. We'll have you back on the road." And they said, "Too bad you couldn't get in." And the technical director that my son's had says, "Oh, I can do that for you." He said, "Well, it's a little late. We tried for 3 years. We couldn't do it. We've given $2 million to Qualcomm, Siemens, AT&T, and Verizon, and they've been working on it for 2 years." And Mike says, "I'll have a prototype for you in 6 months." And they said, "No." I said, "Well, will you buy it?" And they said, "Yes, we'll buy it if you can do it." So sure enough, 6 months and 2 weeks later, they put it on their desk. They beat these guys out. Mike had developed what's called OnStar, and he was covered by a 50-page non-disclosure, non-compete agreement, but not for trucks, only for cars.
I'll be darned.
And they did it. 10 years later, they started the company. We gave them $30,000 to make their first patent and open the doors. 12 years later, they sold it for over $400 million.
Amazing.
Made the front cover of the Wall Street Journal.
Well, Bill, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. I know that we could sit here for another hour or two, but we'll do it again. I think that the folks have got a good idea who you are, self-made man, all the great things that you did, great athlete. It's a pleasure to be your friend.
Yeah,
okay?
It was a pleasure to make 2 big companies out of nothing.
There you go,
no
man.
Money.
Congratulations.
When the camera's off,
we
can tell you stories about other things.
Okay, well, the camera's still on right now. So
that's my cue.
So we won't do that.
Hey, let's bring on Mike Kirkland.
Okay.
All right. Thanks so much.
That was a pleasure.
Come on over.